Hello and welcome to the day 4 of the Advanced Audit and Assurance Practice to Pass webinar for June 2019 exams being organized by ACCA Pakistan. I am Kashif Kamran, your tutor. Now, just before starting on with the proceedings for the day 4, I would first like to do a quick recap of the day 3 yesterday. Now, yesterday I was focusing on ethical, professional, and quality control issue. The session yesterday was bifurcated into two parts. In the first part of the session, I focused on the ethical issues and we looked into the examiner article on ethics. And from the examiner article on ethics, we identified how to write an ethical thread in the exam paper and how to score marks on the ethical thread in the exam paper. The examiner article was a very productive article in terms of guiding us that the student should know about the management thread and the student should also know about the difference between a listed company and a non-listed company when it comes to writing the safeguard in the exam paper. Then towards the next part of the session yesterday, I focused on the quality control. Okay, then into the second part of the live session yesterday on the day 3, I focused on the professional and quality control issues. There was another article by the examiner on quality control. That was again an insightful article which can really provide you the boundaries of quality control from the context of the advanced audit and assurance exam. We identified that in a question on quality control and professional issues, the basic focus point is to identify what is wrong, what the auditor did wrong. If you are capable of identifying anything which the auditor or the audit team did wrong, you need to identify that wrong thing and you need to justify why it is wrong. And you need then to write the implication of that wrong thing on the audit. So then you need to write an action or a safeguard. So it's a pretty simple equation, a question on ethical, professional, and quality control issue, where you just need to focus on a case study, try to identify anything which you believe the auditor has done wrong, whether that is an ethical dilemma or whether that is a professional or a quality control problem. The bottom line is a wrong thing picked up, then why it is a wrong thing and what's the implication of the wrong thing, and then you go down gaining your marks. The marking scheme was also clarified in the session yesterday, and I hope you had a sound knowledge of the topic yesterday, again within the constraint of the 3-hour session. Now that was just a refresher of the day 3 yesterday, just to keep you in touch with these sessions going on a day-wise basis. Now let's start on with the day 4, where the focus of the fourth day today is on other assignments. Now, other assignments is a very important area which is a feature of the AAA exams, but you need to understand this is something which does not appear in every single exam sitting. So do you expect a question on other assignment coming in every single exam sitting? That is not possible. This is not like a risk topic which has to come in every single exam sitting. This is not like a topic of procedure which comes in every single exam sitting. This is not like a topic on ethical, professional, and quality control issue which comes in almost every single exam sitting. And this is not even like a topic on reporting, which we will be doing on the final day tomorrow, which comes in every single exam sitting. So this is not a topic which you expect to come in every single exam sitting, but yet this is a core syllabus area and students should have a better guidance and idea of handling this topic if it comes in June 2019 exams. Now, just again, a clarification. On the right hand side of my screen, if you see the previous sessions on this topic, in March 2018, I did this topic. Then in June 18, I didn't. Then in September 18, I didn't. Then in December 18, I did. Then in March 19, I didn't. And now again in June 19, I am doing this topic yet again. So you have access to March 18 webinar. You have access to December 18 webinar where you can access these topics. Now, the other assignments which I have chosen for this June 2019 session is forensic and audit of performance information. And the reason for that is two. The first reason is that due diligence has come in the last exams, which is March 2019. So there is no likelihood of a due diligence coming back to June 19 exams. And if you want to practice due diligence, you can practice the December 18 webinar. So no chances, right, for due diligence. Then comes the prospective financial information. The prospective financial information came in the September 18 exam when the format of the paper was changed. So again, the reoccurrence of a PFI looks dim. And again, if you want to practice the PFI, I have already done PFI in March 18 webinar. So you can access the March 18 webinar. If you want to revise the prospective financial information, you can access the December 18 webinar if you want to revise the due diligence. But considering they have appeared in the recent exam settings, the likelihood, the chance of forensic and audit of performance information is greater, and that is the reason of choosing them in the session today. And again, I have spent less time on these in my previous session. So let's start the journey on these two assignments for the session today. I have chosen some questions, again, questions which I have not done in the previous webinar purposely. I will be doing the June 15 question number 3C. This is the first time I will be doing it in any of my previous webinar. Then I have a December 15 question 2B. Again, this will be done for the first time, and December 11 question number 4A and 4B. So these three questions I have not done in any of my preceding webinars. So you will gain more knowledge from these three questions. And if you want to access the previous questions on the same topics, you have the previous webinars in March 18, December 18, where you can access more practice material. Then you have some home questions on this topic, which is December 12 question 4C and June 17 question 3B and 3C. Okay, let's first start with audit of performance information, the likelihood of which is higher. Now, to start on with audit of performance information, first and then the forensic audit, you should be assured that there are articles on both. If you want to read about audit of performance information, there is an examiner article here, which is the very first hyperlink you can see on the screen. So you can access this hyperlink for exploring the topic audit of performance information. And then if you want to read about forensic, there is yet another article on forensic, which is the second hyperlink on the bottom of the presentation. So there are two hyperlinks, one for the audit of performance information and one for forensic. Both these articles are very important. You should be reading these two articles because these two articles are utmost important if you want to gain knowledge on these two areas. Now, the first one we're starting is the very first article by the examiner, which is right here in front of your screen, performance information in the public sector. Now, again, it might be the case that this is the very first time you are looking at this article, and you might have covered this in the previous exam settings. So how many of you are looking at this article for the first time in terms of your preparation towards the June 2019 exams? Can you respond? Okay. Oh, that's a greater number of students responding with that they're looking for this for the first time. Okay, that's interesting. So that's even good that you saw it for the first time a month before your actual exams coming up. So let's explore this topic, and let's explore this article, and let's also build up the exam perspective on this topic. Now, you all of you must be having my slides on a daily basis, which you see on screen on a regular basis, that I put emphasize on these slides. It is your responsibility that you go through these slides which are shared with you on a daily basis, because these slides sum up the areas. You can see this slide which sum up the forensic in one column and performance information in the second column, and then you move on. You can see slides about forensic accounting. Even if I skip some slides in the live session, this is for you to read, because these slides have been made for your support, right? So it is very important that you go through these slides after the session comes to an end, because these are the summary points of things we have to discuss in the session today. Okay, let's first start with performance information. And you can see on the right hand side of the screen, you have some summary of performance information, the topic to start. If you see the right hand side of the screen, ignoring forensic for the time being, you can see the heading performance information, and you see the first bullet. It says focus on procedures on verifying the validity of the performance information. In each exam sitting, you can see the exam papers in the third bullet: December 15, December 14, and December 17. You need to make a correction there. It has to be June 17, not December 17. So in December 15, in December 14, and in June 17. These are three instances where this topic has come, and in all the three instances, the examiner focused on procedures for the performance information. Now, I hope you remember that we were drilling procedures on the day two, and I hope all of you remember the mnemonic we made for procedure, that the procedure should start with action, the procedure should have a source, and the procedure should have a purpose, ASP. All of you remember that? Yes or no? Okay, so do you recall procedures from day two? Okay, that will come back again today. So this topic is focused on procedure. Now, a very golden rule of thumb is that in whichever topic you come across procedures, or in whichever area you come across procedures in 100 marks paper, the rule for making procedure remains the same, right? And the rule for making procedure was discussed in the day two: action, source, purpose, ASP. And then we also learned something, that the procedures have to be case adaptive. So a good procedure is one which adapts to the case. I hope you remember that from the day two. So it focus on the procedures. Number two, it do test knowledge given in the article. In all the three instances, December 15, December 14, and June 17. In all the three instances, the examiner tested the knowledge examiner has given in the article. So that means reading the article, understanding the article will play a crucial part. And then procedures is something we cannot learn, right? Procedure is something we have to see the case study, and we will adapt the procedures according to the circumstances given in the case study. So let's open this topic, and we have to explore questions. I will be exploring the December 15 question in the session today, so that you have an idea. I have covered the December 14 question in my previous webinar, so you can see the December 14 question in the previous from the previous webinar, and the June 17 question will be your assignment. So you can take this as your assignment. December 15 I'll do in the session, and December 14 I have already done in my previous webinar in December 18. Okay, let's start on with the topic. Now I am taking on my Word file as I do on a daily basis. Now this time we're focusing on the Word file first to start a topic which falls under other assignments. And under the other assignments, the first topic we are taking is audit of performance information. Audit of performance information. That's the first topic we're taking for this session. Now, for the audit of performance information, there is an article, and this is a must to read article. And I will be reading this article right with you in the session today so that you have an idea of what to read from this article. Then, from the article, we need to focus on procedures yet again, but this time we are focusing on procedures on audit of performance information. So these are the two things we need to do on this topic, and that is how you will control your exam temperament with this topic. It's not a difficult topic. You just need to hold the examiner article very, very effectively. So let's start first now with the examiner article, and let's have some key learnings from examiner article. Okay, now in front of your screen, you will see the examiner article, and we will take some key learnings from examiner article. Okay, right in front of your screen is the article performance information. The basic title, the basic topic in the syllabus is audit of performance information, but the examiner in this article is covering performance information in the public sector. The public sectors like hospitals, like universities. So the examiner has already given an exam question in June 17 on a hospital. The examiner has already given an exam question on a university in December 15. So examiner has already tested a hospital, and examiner has already tested a university. And interestingly, the hospital was tested in the June 17 exams, and the university was tested in the December 15 exams. Right? So I'll be doing the university today in the session, and the hospital is basically your assignment. Now, when we go down and see what exactly is performance information, because you might be having a question mark, we're doing a topic, audit of performance information. You all understand what audit is, right? Audit is about examination. You need to examine. We are not examining the financial statements here. What are we examining here? We are examining something which is known as performance information. Now, all of you are familiar with the word audit, but you might be unfamiliar with the word performance information. You are more familiar with the word known as financial statements. So let's go back and drill the very first thing. Number first thing, what is performance information? So is that a question which is popping in every student mind attending the live session? What is performance information? Is that something of a critical question here to be answered? So let's explore what is performance information, and all of you know what is audit and what we do in audit. Everyone sounds like, right? Audit is like an examination of something. Okay, let's see what is performance information. Now, when you see this first blue paragraph, which I have highlighted for the session today, there are some paragraphs in this article which I will be discussing today in the live session, but it is recommended for all of you to read this article in full. The first blue paragraph highlighted, I'm reading, the syllabus and study guide for P7, Advanced Audit and Assurance, both for international and the Singapore stream paper, includes a section entitled The Audit of Performance Information. So what is given in the syllabus is this, the audit of performance information. The examiner writes in the bracket predetermined objectives in the public sector. I hope all of you are familiar with the word known as KPI, key performing indicators. So performance information is a key performing indicator, KPI. How many of you are familiar with this word KPI? You know what KPI is, key performing indicator? Do every organization have some KPIs against which they judge their performance? So the organization makes a KPI first, right? And against the KPI, the organization evaluates their performance. So examiner is saying these are like predetermined objectives in the public sector. This article is intended to provide insights into syllabus area and explain some issues of which candidates should be aware when studying this aspect of syllabus. So see how wonderful this article is. It says issues which candidates should be aware when studying this aspect of the syllabus. So that's the introduction. Now let's go down and exactly see what is this. Now can you see this paragraph in front of your screen, which basically sets the tone of what is performance information, because we are trying to make a definition of what is a performance information, right? Candidates will be familiar with the concept of key performing indicator, and you all agree that you're familiar with this, right? So candidates must be familiar with the concept of key performing indicator, which are widely used by the private sector in relation to non-financial information such as social and environmental reporting. In December 14 exams, which I did in the December 18 webinar, there was a question on a private sector, and the private sector was showing the KPIs for social and environmental performance. So examiner has already tested a question on social environmental performance in December 14 exam, which I did in the December 18 webinar. Then the examiner says, there have been several examination requirements in the past P7 exams focusing on this syllabus area. So have I mentioned you how many times this topic have come in past papers? December 14, December 15, and June 17, right? And I have already made clear which question will I be doing today and which you have to do as an assignment. Now the examiner comes to the point and says, in the public sector, the same principle apply. Now see the definition. In the public sector, the same principle apply in that the target KPI will be established as a performance objective, and the organization performance against the KPI will be measured. So are you understanding what is performance information? We will first establish a KPI, and the KPI will become the performance objective. And against the KPI, the organization will measure the performance. So is that like setting a KPI and then judging how we have performed against the KPI? Is that something simple to understand, everyone? So we set a KPI. Who sets a KPI? The management. And at the end of the year, the management judge the performance against the KPI. So is that a pretty simple definition of what is a performance information? So can we write it back on the word file here? So I'm using the short form. Please be familiar with this short form. PI, performance information. So performance information is basically a KPI, which is the predetermined objective against which organizational performance is measured. Is that definition clear to everyone? Performance information, PI, is basically a key performing indicator, which is a predetermined objective. And against the objective, the organizational performance is measured, right? So that becomes the performance information. Now let's see what we have to do as an auditor, because it says audit of performance information. Now it's very simple. If you try to understand the audit of performance information, you can get a very easy clue here. And the very easy clue here is that being an auditor, the auditor has to audit, the auditor has to audit the validity, the auditor has to audit the validity, the accuracy, the auditor has to audit the validity and accuracy of the reported performance information, reported performance information by the management. Is that exactly what the auditor do when he goes for the audit? He confirms the validity and accuracy of the financial statements and then give an opinion. Is that true? Right? So over here, what is the auditor doing? The auditor is confirming the validity and accuracy of what? Of the reported performance information. Of the reported performance information by the management. So audit is basically the same thing, right? Whether we do audit of the financial statement or we do audit of the performance information. If something has been reported by the management, is it the auditor's responsibility to assure the validity and accuracy of that? Is that something very simple? Again, respond with a yes and no. So if something is reported by the management, is the auditor interested to assure the validity and accuracy of that? So isn't it something pretty simple? This topic is audit, audit of performance information. I hope you're clear with the title here. Is everyone clear with the title? Okay, that's wonderful. Let's go down. So auditor has to audit the validity and accuracy of the reported performance information by the management. Yes, the performance against the KPI is checked by the auditor, right? And whether the KPI was right or wrong is even the duty of the auditor. The auditor can have a criticism of the KPI itself. The auditor can give recommendation to the management that the KPI was wrong and you should change the KPI. So even the auditor can criticize the KPI which was set by the management, but the basic purpose of the auditor is to look at the performance against the KPI, right? So is everyone clear on that? So auditor is checking the performance against the KPI and whether the performance is accurate and whether the performance is valid, a valid performance and an accurate performance. And if the KPI itself is wrong, then the auditor can even give recommendations to the management that you should improve or change your key performing indicator. Right. Now, how do the auditor perform this audit? The has to perform, the auditor has to perform procedures to assure validity and accuracy of the reported performance. So what will be the exam question? Yes, exactly. The performance information is set by the management, right? And the auditor confirms that the performance information is valid and accurate. Everything is first done by the management, right? And the auditor then checks whether the management has done it right or wrong. So what the auditor should do to confirm the validity and accuracy? The auditor has to perform procedures. And that's where the examiner will come down with an exam question. The examiner will ask you to perform procedures on the validity and on the accuracy of the reported performance. Is that clear with everyone? 2 and 3. How would the auditor confirm the validity and accuracy of the performance information? By doing what? Respond with answers. How would the auditor assure the validity and accuracy of the reported performance information? What should the auditor do? What should the auditor perform? Procedures, right? So is everyone clear that the procedures will be performed to confirm the validity and accuracy of the financial statement of the performance information? And please remember one thing, that the audit of performance information is a separate assignment. It is a separate assignment. It has nothing to do with financial statement, right? Because Sohaib, you're asking a question. It has nothing to do with financial statement. It is a separate assignment. It is a separate assignment, and it is taken as a separate assignment. So it is a dedicated separate assignment. Okay, now comes to the bottom line. Now, all of you know procedures, how to make them irrespective of the topic. Do you know how to make procedures irrespective of topic? What's the golden rule of thumb to make procedures? Recall that. Good to see you are all learning right from day 1, day 2, day 3. Good to see you are you're coming back into the live sessions. Good to see your response, even that you are remembering the things which were taught to you on the second day of this practice to pass session. So procedures, how to make them? We should first have an action to make a procedure, right? We should then have a source, and we should then have a purpose. So that becomes the ASP, right? So this topic is focused on procedures. Now, the very good thing in the article of the examiner gives us some examples of procedures the auditor can perform to confirm the validity and accuracy of the reported performance. So let's see the procedures from the examiner article. Okay, another question to all of you. Audit of performance information, we are looking at the validity and accuracy of the reported performance, and the auditor has to perform procedures to confirm the validity and accuracy of the reported performance. Do you believe that when the auditor go for the audit of the financial statement, what exactly the auditor do first? When the auditor go for the audit of the financial statement, do he performs test of controls first, or do he perform substantive procedures first? So when the auditor goes for the audit, do the auditors see the internal control systems first and substantive procedures after? Do everyone has that knowledge? So when we are doing the audit of the performance information, will we be concerned about the systems through which the performance information is generated? Would we assure that the systems in the organization which produces the performance information is good, are effective? So should we see the systems through which the performance information is generated? And if the systems are fine, then can there be a validity and credibility of the performance information? So auditor will review the systems. Auditor will review the systems which generates the performance information first. Is that true? The number 5th statement, auditor will review the systems which generates the performance information first. Is that something we even do in the audit? That is exactly something we even do in the audit. We check the systems first, right? So are you understanding this topic, if you know what you do in the audit, we are only changing the subject matter. The subject matter of the audit is the financial statement, right? The subject matter of the audit of performance information is the performance information against the KPI. So auditor will review the systems which generates the performance information first, and will then focus on the substantive procedures, right? Now see what your examiner tells us. Auditor will review the systems which generate the performance information first to confirm the credibility of the performance information. Do you see another word adding here? Validity, accuracy, credibility, right? And we will start an exam paper shortly, so that will give you an illustrative example, right, of how to link this to an exam context, right? For example, right, you go to a hospital, and the one of the KPI of a hospital is to have a doctor to patient ratio, or a nurse to patient ratio. Is that true? Do hospital have such KPIs? Doctor to patient ratio, nurse to patient ratio. So if I go to the audit of a hospital, will I assure that how the management determine the doctor to patient ratio? Do I need to know how many doctors are working in the hospital, and do I need to know how many patients came to the hospital in 1 year? And once I know the number of doctors working in the hospital, and once I know the number of patients who visited the hospital, can I determine the nurse to patient ratio and the doctor to patient ratio? Can I recalculate that? Right? Now, take another example. Reduction in the CO2 emission is a KPI. Now, how difficult this KPI is? Reduction in CO2 emission, reduction in pollution. The management has set the objective. Now, against this objective, the management is showing the performance that each year their CO2 emission is going down. Now, is it easy to verify the CO2 emission going down each year? Is it easier to verify the nurse to patient ratio? Is it easier to verify the nurse to patient ratio? Okay. And is it easier to verify the CO2 emission? So can there be a need of an expert here to determine that what is the CO2 emission? If I need to confirm the validity of the CO2 emission, should I need an expert? But for the nurse to patient ratio, should I need an expert? So are you understanding the basic fact? Do we need an expert in the audit of the financial statement? Do we need an expert in the audit of the financial statement? Yes. There is a topic in the syllabus, right? Using the work of an expert. So are you getting the point? Jeevan, you asked a question basically, right? That give me some examples. So are you cleared down with examples? Okay, perfect. So will the auditor perform the system first? And will the auditor assure that the system in the hospital is credible? Because if the system in the hospital is credible, then relying on the number of patients and relying on the number of doctors record will become easier. But if the system in the hospital is weak, how would I trust the number of patients coming into the hospital, or how will I trust the number of doctors working in the hospital? So is system playing the first crucial part towards the credibility of performance information? Do you all agree with that? Okay, and is everyone sound on the topic so far? Are you getting the understanding of this topic? Because many of you said at the beginning of the session that you're doing it for the first time. So does it seem difficult so far? Okay, that's perfect. The last thing. Now, when you go to the examiner article again, and you go down the examiner article, can you see in front of your screen, there is a blue box which I have highlighted, and the heading of the blue box is audit procedures may include. Now, the examiner is telling you in the article on audit of performance information, audit procedures may include, right? So, audit procedures may include, see the list. Examiner says audit procedures may include test of controls on the system used to generate performance information. Why are we doing test of controls on the system used to generate performance information? To confirm what? To confirm what? Give me an answer. To confirm the credibility of the systems. To confirm the credibility of the system. If the systems are credible, will that reduce my substantive procedures? If the systems are credible, will that reduce my substantive procedures? Sohaib, and if the systems aren't credible, will that increase my substantive procedures? Okay, so examiner is saying test of controls on the systems used to generate performance information. Number two, perform analytical review. Perform analytical review to evaluate trends. To evaluate trends. What was the nurse to patient ratio this year? What was the nurse to patient ratio last year? What was the nurse to patient ratio over the 5 years? Can I do the analytical procedures to gauge the trend of the nurse to patient ratio over the last 5 years? I can do that, right? Okay. Can I do the analytical procedures on the CO2 emission, that how much had been the CO2 emission over the last 5 years? Can I see what, is it increasing? Is it decreasing? So can I gauge the trend in the CO2 emission, the increasing and decreasing trends? Right? So do you all understand the importance of analytical procedures, right? Analytical procedures are used basically to gauge the trends. Number three, discussion with management, another procedure. We can discuss many things with the management, right? In the course of the audit, discussion with the management. So if I need to ask something about, suppose there is an unusual trend, there has been a dramatic increase in the nurse to patient ratio, or there has been a dramatic fall in the nurse to patient ratio. So should I discuss with the management to know what are reasons for that? Is that true? So during the course of the audit, is there a need to discuss many things with the management? And is discussion a very natural procedure in exam paper? Okay, great. Number fourth, examiner says you can even review the minutes of the meeting. Do you remember the day two where we had a criticism on review the board minutes? You know how to use them in exam paper, right? From the day two. So examiner is saying you can use minutes of the meeting, but you know the limitations, right? From the day two, how to use them. Review of minutes of the meetings. So is the examiner giving you the clues of the procedures here? Test of controls, performing analytical procedures, discussion with management, review the minutes of the meeting. Then the next one, examiner says confirmation of performance information to a source document. Many of the student will see confirmation and they will say, okay, this is a third party confirmation. No, examiner is saying confirmation of the performance information to a source document. Do you remember the mnemonic of procedure? ASP. What was S in the ASP? Source. So is the examiner saying confirmation of the performance information to the source? Nurse to patient ratio. What is a source document? What is a source document to know how many patients visited the hospital? Right? Any register, any systems, anything, right? Hospital maintain a log, right? Hospital maintains a log of the patients. So how many doctors are working in the hospital? Will I have a record? Will I have a source document of the number of doctors working in the hospital? The HR records. So is there a source of things to check? And is checking the source of things important? Right? So examiner is saying the source document. And the last thing the examiner says, recalculate. Now, can we recalculate the nurse to patient ratio? Recalculate. So has the examiner given you a clue in the article? Just recap. Examiner is saying you can make a test of control. Number 1, T. Examiner is saying you can make analytical procedures, A. Examiner is saying you can do discussions, D. Yes, exactly, Jamshed. We understood that on the day 2. Procedure without a reason is useless. I hope you remember the ASP. Purpose. A procedure without a purpose is useless. So T is the test of controls. A is the analytical procedure. D is the discussion with the management. Then M is the minutes of the meeting. M is the minutes of the meeting. S is the source document. Can we confirm the source documents? And R is the recalculation. See, so we can learn something for exam paper. TADMSR. T is the test of controls. A is the analytical procedure. D is the discussion with management. M is the minutes of the meeting. S is the source document. And R is the recalculation. Sunika, for example, management has given a donation of $1 million. Can we confirm the approval of the donation from the board minutes? So can you understand the purpose of board minutes now, Sunika? And Khoso, yes, we can use this for other procedures even, if you are clever. The student is asking, can we use the TADMSR for other procedures? Yes. Test of controls, analytical procedures, discussion. Are they not normal procedures? Are they not natural procedures we do elsewhere in the paper as well? We do. Don't we perform recalculations elsewhere in the paper? Analytical procedures elsewhere in the paper, recalculations elsewhere in the paper, minutes of the meeting elsewhere in the paper. So can we use these procedures elsewhere? Yes, we can. So what is the mnemonic TADMSR? Everyone remembers? Can I go back on the word file and write it? Procedures. Examiner says procedures is equal to TADMSR. And will all of you remember the TADMSR? Because we need to start an exam paper. Recap. T is the test of controls, TOCs. A is the analytical procedure. D is the discussion with the management. M is the minutes. M is the minutes of the board meetings. Right. Then we have S. S is the source document. And R is the recalculation. So will that be remembered for exam paper? Is that easy to remember for exam paper? So how you are finding this topic so far? It's Hosaw, the examiner is just writing procedures in the article to guide you that these are procedures. Obviously, you need to write purpose when you do a procedure in the exam paper. Examiner is just giving a list of journal procedures. Why will the examiner give a purpose? Purpose has to come from the case study, right? Examiner is not solving a case study in the article. Rather, examiner is just giving examples to students and how you should go about it. Roshan, you need to do practice, right? If you're finding difficulty, and nothing is difficult unless and until you practice. So the more you practice, the better for you. Jeevan, you need to read the article for the rest of the informations you're asking, right? These are very normal things. You need to explore the article, and you will get to know the questions to your answers to your questions. Okay, back to the topic. So is everyone clear about the procedures to do on this situation? Yes, exactly. TAD/MSR is the actions, test of controls, analytical procedures, discussions. They're all like actions. Okay, perfect. Let's go down with an exercise now. Recap, focus, audit of performance information. Is everyone clear on the title? Audit means to examine. Performance information means KPI and judging the performance against the KPI. What is the duty of the auditor? The auditor needs to confirm the accuracy, auditor needs to confirm the validity, and auditor needs to confirm the accuracy of the performance information. And how would the auditor confirm the credibility, accuracy, and validity? Through TAD/MSR. Is everyone clear on that? So if someone asks you, how would the auditor confirm the credibility, accuracy, and validity of the performance information? Can you respond to that? How would the auditor confirm the credibility, validity, accuracy of the performance information? Waiting for your answers. Through TAD/MSR. Perfect. With procedures, procedures, performing procedures. Good answers. Okay, let's put a question in front of you. See if you can handle it. Okay, right in front of your screen is a December 15 question. And please remember that this topic, audit of performance information, never comes in a full question. It normally comes for 10 marks. In all the three exam settings, it has come for 10 marks. So 10 marks means it's not a complete question, it's a part of a question. Now, the question you're seeing in front of your screen, if you go down and you see the B part of the question, in the B part of the question, can you see a table? And can you see a table which says details of the performance information are given below? And every time you get a question on performance information, obviously the examiner will give you the performance information. Can can you see the KPIs of this company in the middle? Percentage of students who complete their degree program, percentage of students achieving a distinction. So for a university, see the KPIs of the university. Graduation rates, academic performance. Are these important KPIs for a university to see the graduation rates, the academic performance, how many student gets jobs, and the course satisfaction? So can you see the KPIs in the first column? And can you see the performance? Can you see the performance in the last column here? Can you see the performance in the last column? 85%, 20%, 65%, and 70%. So what the auditor needs to verify? Is the auditor verifying the column 1, column 2, or the column 3? Auditor needs to ensure the credibility, validity of column 1, column 2, column 3? Obviously column 3. Column 3 is the results. An auditor needs to verify the credibility of the results. Auditor needs to verify the validity of the results. So where is the results? Column number 3. So should the auditor confirm the validity of 85%? How the management got this 85%? So should the auditor confirm 85%? Should the auditor confirm 70%? Should the auditor confirm 65%? And do the auditor needs to perform procedures for that? Procedures for that? Now, can you see the requirement of the examiner down under? Examiner is putting 2 requirements, and something so amazing with this topic. Each time this topic has come, I just mentioned that at the beginning of my lecture today, that each time this topic has come, one part of the topic, one part of the question is the article, one part of the question is procedures. Can you see the first part of this question? Discuss the relevance and measurability of the reported performance information. This is from the article of the examiner. This is basically the knowledge. Where will you get the answer of relevance and measurability? Examiner has covered both the relevance and the examiner has covered both the measurability in the article. So I'll just take you down there, right? Relevance and measurability. So what's the source of this? The source of this is the article. Then the examiner comes with the favorite area, examination procedures to be used in auditing the performance information. Now, do we know examination procedures? Who will recall the examination procedures on performance information? Yes, TAD, MSR. Will we apply all of them in exam paper, or will we see the need in the case study? Should procedures be rote learn, or should procedures be case specific? So do I close my eyes in the exam paper and start to apply TAD, MSR, or will I see, is there a need to apply T? Is there a need to apply A? Is there a need to apply D? Is there a need to apply M? Because many of the students will say, okay, I got a rule, TAD, MSR. Okay, let's do all of them. Will I look at the case to assure whether there is a need of a T, need of a, need of a D, need of an M, need of an S, need of an R? Is adaptive must? So are you getting that knowledge? Adaptive is must. We need to adapt. Okay, wonderful. Okay, now let's discuss the relevance and measurability of the reported performance, right? What is the relevance of the performance information? For a university which is in the case study right in front of you, what is the relevance of the performance information? What is relevance of anything? Relevance to whom? If the university is showing the performance information, for whom? For whom the university is showing the performance information? Students, exactly. That's a good answer. That's a good answer, Arun Kumar. So wonderful answer. So that means we need not to read the article here. We have a common sense, and a common sense is better than the article, right? So relevance. Relevance is relevance versus what? Relevance versus stakeholders. Stakeholders. So if the information published by the university should be relevant to whom? Should be relevant to the prospective students, prospective teachers, right? Anyone connected with the university. If the hospital is publishing the information, then that information is relevant to the patients, to the doctors. So every organization have stakeholders. Every organization have stakeholders. And when we publish information, do we consider stakeholders in publishing information? Yes or no? Do we consider stakeholders when we publish information? So relevance is what? Relevance is the stakeholder. We consider relevance versus the stakeholder. right? Is that clear with everyone? And if you want to read relevance more, you can read relevance from the Examiner article. I got a perfect answer, so I'm not going back to the Examiner article. Okay, the second thing the Examiner wants us is measurability of the information. To measure the information, let's see who is clever. Can you see the measurement given here? 85%, 20%, 65%, 70%. Management is saying their graduation rate is 85%. Has the management measured the graduation rate at 85%? Have they calculated that? Yes. Have they calculated that 20% of the student got distinctions? So how they measured? Measurability depends upon what? Let's see who is clever. Measurability depends upon source. Okay. Measurability depends upon records, systems. Can, without systems and record, I can know how much is the graduation rate? Can a university know without records of the students what is the graduation rate? So measurability depends upon what? Systems. True. Do you all agree with that? Data, system, information. So without information, can I measure? Without information, can I measure? Without systems, can I measure? No. Without data, can I measure? Okay. Last thing, without records, can I measure? So are you getting the clue here? So that means you all are very clever students appearing for June 2019 exams, because you've given me wonderful answer and you have cut short the time to read the Examiner article. But you have to read the Examiner article after the session comes to an end. Okay. Now you told me that the relevance of performance information, the relevance of the performance information is versus stakeholders. And then you told me that measurability of performance information is versus records, data, information, systems. Do we need all that for measurability? Measurability, we need records, data, information, systems. Can without that we measure? No. Okay, now listen to our question very carefully. I need your response. Listen first. How much time for a hospital, right? For a hospital, how much time an ambulance take to respond to an emergency? The hospital knows that because the hospital have a tracking system on an ambulance, so they exactly know that the time they got a call and the time the hospital reached the destination, they can measure the time, how much time the ambulance took to respond to an emergency. Examiner says that is easier. Examiner says that is easier to determine how much time the ambulance took to respond to an emergency. However, the examiner says it is more difficult to measure was the patient satisfied or not. Who took the ambulance, right? Who took the ambulance? Was the patient satisfied or not with the ambulance service? The examiner says that's more subjective. Examiner has covered this example in the article of an ambulance. So examiner says the time to respond by an ambulance is much better because that can at least be measured by the hospital or by the ambulance service. But was the patient who availed the ambulance service was satisfied or not, that is very subjective, because a lot of time the patients does not give the feedback because they are in a panic, they are in an emergency. So will they be able to give the feedback? No, not at all. So if the hospital says the patients are very satisfied with the ambulance service, is that something trustworthy? So are you understanding this? This example which I just stated in the live session is from the article of the Examiner. So please do read the Examiner article. So can I say that the measurability sometime measurability sometime can be difficult or can be subjective? Is that true? Do you agree with my statement in the in the context of the ambulance example I just given you? Do you all agree with that? Okay. So is everyone clear on relevance? What is relevance? And will you read the Examiner article for relevance? Okay. Measurability, is everyone clear on measurability? And will you read the Examiner article for measurability? Okay, just let me show you here that at least you know this is in the Examiner article. Uh, when you read the Examiner article, right, uh, can you see this paragraph? It starts with relevance mean. I'm not doing that in the session, but you have to read this paragraph, relevance mean. So Examiner is covering the relevance in the article. Can you see that on your screen, everyone? Right? Okay, and now can you see a paragraph here above? Can you see the paragraph on your screen just from where the bracket is starting? Measurability means, can you see this here? Measurability means. So will you read these paragraphs from the Examiner article to know what is measurability? So do you got an idea that Examiner tested the measurability and relevance from where? From the article. So is it important to read articles before going to exam hall? Because if the examiner says measurability, where it is coming from the article, relevance, article. So if the examiner tests something, most of the time that tested thing is in the article. We never read articles properly before going to exam hall, and that is the time, that is the problem, that most of the time we get panic in exam paper. Please make it a habit of reading examiner articles as something must before the 3rd of June. Is everyone clear? Can I leave the article on your side now? Will you download this article? Will you read this article? Audit of performance information from the website. Can I trust all of you on that? Can I perform procedures on all of you for credibility, validity, and accuracy? That you will all be going down and downloading this article and reading this article, because this is a very important topic for June 2019 exams even. Okay, wonderful. Okay, just one last quick exercise now. Let's see how many of you can respond to me on procedures. I taught you procedures on day 2. We just had a discussion on procedures today, TADMSR. Now let's go one by one and see. The graduation rate is 85%, right? Let's take that on the word file, and I'll be asking you questions and you will be responding to me. So we'll do a brainstorming, and let's see how good procedures we can get through brainstorming. Procedures. We're doing this on December 2015 question. Question number 2B. Okay, the first one. The graduation rate, and the graduation rate is 85%, right? Now just think for a minute. TADMSR, and I will think in the exam paper, okay, the graduation rate, uh, just before starting with the 85%, I can write a top line procedure for everything. Journal procedure. I can write a procedure which covers all 4 of them: 85%, 20%, 65%, and 70%. I can write the journal procedure, at the top of my list here, and I'll say review the internal control systems in place at the university. Review the internal control systems in place at the university to confirm the overall credibility of the performance information generated by the management. Is that a procedure which covers the credibility of 85%, 20%, 70%? I'm looking at the university internal control systems to confirm that how good the systems are in the university, because that will really increase the trust factor on the information generated. Now, if these systems are good, can I trust 85% in exam paper? So is that like a procedure I can start first before I come specific to graduation rate? Now can I make specific procedures to graduation rate in exam paper? Okay, so have we gone with T, right? Now we're left with what? ADMSR, A, analytical procedure. Now just take an example. I just want to show you a way of making a common sense in exam paper. For example, T has gone. Now I'm thinking about A. And I'll write in the exam paper, A. See how I make that adaptive to a case study. Analyze the graduation rates of the university over, for example, a 3-year period to gauge the trends and fluctuations in the graduation rates, or to identify any abnormal rise or fall in these rates. See how we apply the graduation rate to an analytical procedure? Are you learning the adaptiveness here? How we adapt things to circumstances? Is everyone getting that learning? Adaptive? So TADMSR, but with the TADMSR, what we should have? Should we be adaptive or not? So have you got this analyze? Okay, we got TAD. Let's write D. I cannot force a procedure, right? I cannot force a procedure. I can only write a procedure if it is relevant. D. Discuss with management any unusual fluctuations in the university graduation rates, Discuss with management any unusual fluctuations in the university graduation rates over a 3-year period. 3-year period is just an example, right? So can I discuss any unusual fluctuations in the graduation rates with management to know the reasons for that? To confirm the reasons thereof. So am I breaking the rules I set on the day 2? Yes, even that's wonderful. Hassan, discuss with management about the measurability criteria of graduation rates, how you measure the graduation rates, how you know how many students have graduated. So am I doing something against what I set on the day 2? No, graduation rates will change, right, every year, Hamad, right? How can they be same every year? The graduation rates, they fluctuate, right? ACCA pass rates for AAA, Do ACCA pass rates remain the same in every quarter? No. Sometimes they're high, sometimes they're low. Sometimes more student pass, sometimes less student pass. So we can do the trend analysis, right? Okay, TADM, minutes. We don't need to have any minutes here, right? Nothing must have been approved by the management. So no need to force M here. I know all of you might force M here, and you might be very much concerned about M being omitted. I'm just showing you clues here, right? MS source. Is there a source document of a graduation rate 85%? And kit analytical procedure will give me the fluctuation, right? And the fluctuation reasons will be with the management. Why something is fluctuating? How will the auditor know? Auditor can only identify the fluctuation, but who will give me the reason of fluctuation? Obviously the management. I hope that's clear with you, NKIT. Okay, should I know the graduation rate from a source document? Should I review the results of the university students? Should I review the results of the university students on a sample basis? On a sample basis, who had graduated during the year? Right? Should I review the results of the university students on a sample basis who had graduated during the year to confirm the authenticity of the graduation, to confirm the validity of graduation, that yes, indeed they were graduated, to confirm the validity of graduation? And can I recalculate the graduation rate? Recalculate the graduation rate to confirm the accuracy, to confirm the accuracy of the graduation rate determined by the management. So did you got some application here? Did we got internal controls on the top T? Did we got analyze? Did we got discuss? Did we got source document? Results? Did we got the recalculations? Just on one, how many procedures we need to make in this question? How many marks we had? We had 10 marks. An examiner was saying the marks are split between 1 and 2. So 5 marks for discuss the relevance and measurability, 5 marks for recommend the procedures. So how many procedures we need to make? 5. Just on the very first one, how many we made? Let's count our procedures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just we made 5 on the very first one, the graduation rates. Are you getting the track of making procedures, everyone? Can you continue making procedures on the other areas in this question? 20% distinctions. Can I ask management the distinction criteria? What is the distinction criteria of the university? So can I ask management, discuss with management the distinction criteria of 20%? Should I know the distinction criteria of the university? Yes or no? So can I discuss with the university management the distinction criteria? Can I recalculate the 20%? Can I recalculate the 20%? Can I see the certificates of the students who were awarded the distinction? There must be a source document, right? You must have there must be a source document of distinction, right? In the university, you must have emailed them, or there must be a letter of distinction. There must be a copy of that letter with the management. I can just review the letter of distinction. So are you getting the track? Are you getting the clue how to go about this topic, audit of performance information? Okay, now give me answers. I need to shift towards forensic. Listen to my questions, respond to them. Number 1, will you read the article for audit of performance information? Okay. Will the article help you? Okay. Will you get to know about relevance and measurability from the article? Will you get to know about the procedures from the article? Right? Okay, that's good. Okay, second, will you complete this question December 15 first yourself and then you will see my answer because the answer of this question has been shared with you. But will you complete the question yourself first, then reconcile your answer with my answer? Okay. June 17 is your assignment. That's given on the presentation slides, right? And if you want to do the December 14 question, I have already done that in the December 18 webinar, which was on social and environmental performance. So if you want to see the performance information in the context of social environmental performance, you can see my December 18 webinar for that. Okay, just one last thing from this particular topic, which cannot be ignored. Back to the article. We were conducting audit of performance information, right? So what is the most important thing in audit? Gather evidence. So have we focused on procedures? Now tell me what's the second most important thing in the audit? Is to issue a The second most important thing in the audit is to issue what? Assurance report. Okay. Let's see, has the examiner given us a clue on reporting here? You go down the article and you will see this paragraph here, reporting on performance information. Let's see what assurance we give on audit of performance information. What assurance we give on audit of performance information. Is this paragraph clear in front of your screen? Can you see this paragraph very carefully in the blue box, everyone? Can you see this blue box, everyone, clearly? Can you read the paragraphs? Okay, I'm giving you 2 minutes. Just read the 3 paragraphs in front of your screen quickly. Tell me the assurance level after reading the 3 paragraphs. You have 3 minutes to read them. Okay, do raise your hands, right, once you are done with the reading of the 3 paragraphs, which is in the blue box. Yes, the marking scheme for measurability and relevance is 2 marks. Anything which is of knowledge, right? The knowledge marks are 2. So every point you write on measurability and relevance, you will get 2 marks for that, Jyoti. Okay, so is the examiner saying that the assurance level can be anyone here, and the auditor will agree the type of conclusion with the management? So it can be moderate assurance, it can be reasonable assurance. So the auditor needs to agree the assurance level with the management. Is everyone clear on that? So is there a definite level of assurance for this audit? Is there a definite level of assurance for this audit? Respond. No. And is the assurance level to be agreed between the auditor and the management? Right? And can it be any reasonable or moderate? So can I write that on my Word file just to complete this topic off? The last thing from this topic, reporting on performance information. And the first bullet, no level of assurance is prescribed, so the auditor has to agree. Auditor has to agree on the assurance level, with management or with the client, right? Ilara, it's open, right? Management has to agree. What type of assurance auditor can give? It's open. You need to agree that with management. So we cannot conclude on that because it's been very clearly written that you need to agree that with management. If the management wants a reasonable assurance, you'll give reasonable. If the management wants a moderate assurance, you'll give a moderate assurance. Sonika, no such thing has been covered in the article. But again, if you read the complete article, you will get many answers to your questions, but nothing such has been discussed in the article. Is everyone clear on this topic? Have I covered the major parts of this topic with you? Uh, the topic focus on procedures and knowledge. Knowledge comes from the article, procedure comes from common sense. Everyone knows procedure, TADMSR, and everyone knows procedures have to be case specific. You cannot underestimate this topic for June 2019 exams. So it's better you give a proper time to this topic and assure that you know how to write procedures and you know the good things from the article, the important things from the article. Is that clear with everyone? Right now, that's bringing us to the end of the first topic, which is audit of performance information. And just a quick Q&A session with all of you. How many of you had no idea of this topic at all, or you have never prepared this topic like this way? Yes, Madhya Ahmed. Yes, Madhya Ahmed. For your question, the answer is yes. So now is everyone clear on this topic? Did you got the importance of this topic? Did you got to know that the exam questions are there on this topic? So you know how to go down with this topic, right? Can you see the screen on the right? December 15 has been discussed in the class. December 14, you can do that from the December 18 webinar. In the December 18 webinar, I did the December 14, June 17. It's not December 17. I made that correction, right? It's basically the June 17. There's this one. You have to do it yourself, right? Right. So is that clear? And you can just get things from here, right? Can you see on the right hand side of your screen the previous webinars? Can you see a KPI question here? So that's exactly the December 14 question, right? Which I did in the December 18 webinar. So you can go to the day four of the December 18 webinar, and you can practice the December 14 question number 3B. So the only one question you have to do from this topic is this one then, June 17. This is one question which you will do as your assignment. Yes, I have shared the full answer, right, of December 15, the part of performance information, Ghazi. So you can see the answer and go down with it. Yes, exactly, Roshan. The results will always be provided for performance information. How can we do a question if the examiner does not provide the results? The results is a critical part of the case study, right? Because then only we can do the procedures. Okay, now time for the first break of the day 4 live session, 9:30 p.m. Pakistan Standard Time. So back live at 9:45 p.m. Pakistan Standard Time, and the topic will change. We are going towards forensic. Laura, December 12 is a forensic question, right? Which is in the second part of the session. So just wait for the second part to start at 9:45 p.m. Pakistan Standard Time. I'll be back live and we will be starting on with forensic. So for the time being, have a break, have a cup of tea or coffee, relax yourself, come back, and we'll start on with forensic audit, which is another important area for this exams coming up in June. And just before we go on to a break, quickly, feedback for the first 90 minutes. How had been the session today in terms of your learning the first 90 minutes? Quick feedback, and we're going off the break. Okay, off to a break, 9:45 p.m. Pakistan Standard Time. I'll be back live, and we are starting on with forensic. So if you have any confusions and problems in forensic, do join me at 9:45 p.m. Pakistan Standard Time for the last 75 minutes of the day 4, where the focus will shift now on forensic. Have a break and come back fresh to the session. Hello and welcome back to the session of Advanced Audit and Assurance Practice to Pass webinar for June 2019. We are in day 4 and now in the second part of the day 4 where the focus shifts towards forensic. Now, just like audit of performance information, forensic is also supported by examiner article. So again, the clue of what to expect and what can come and what can the examiner ask will lie in the article. So forensic, again, the benchmark to be set here will be the article. So what comes in this topic, how it is tested, we get to know that from the article. Secondly, uh, what is forensic and what a student should know as key points to survive in the exam paper, to survive the exam question. That's the second area. So there are two things, right? We are discussing today in the session. Amar, you can get your answer from the examiner article. Definitions are not tested. They were tested way back in June 2008 examination when forensic was introduced as the new topic. And obviously, since the topic becomes mature, examiner don't ask definitions anymore. But still, if you want to find the difference between the terms you're asking, you can explore the examiner article. Examiner has covered that in detail in the article. So two things to focus on, right? First, what comes in this topic and how it is tested, and what is forensic and what a student should know as a key point to survive the exam question. Okay, let's go down. Start with examiner article on forensic. Now, right in front of your screen is an article, Forensic Accounting. Just like my previous topic, I'll start with the same question. How many of you have read this article, Forensic Accounting, before? Okay, so that means many of you are doing this article for the first time. So that's interesting. I never understand why you students don't give time to the examiner article when that is the most important resource ACCA publish for students. I hope with my sessions, I have disseminated that message among students, the importance of reading articles. Have you realized that in the last 3 days or so, how important reading articles are for topics? Okay, great. So let's start down with forensic accounting. Now, again, I have highlighted some paragraphs for the session. You need to read the full article. If you see the two lines in the blue, it says forensic accounting has been a regular feature in the paper P7 exams in recent sitting. This is not a very new article. So the recent sittings are not like the 2017 and 18 exams, because this article was published way back in 2011 and 12. So it's quite an old article on the ACCA website, but still covers the subject matter, which is forensic. So the recent sittings does not mean the recent one, but the time the article was published. But yes, it is a regular feature. But the examiner has commented that it is inadequately understood part of the syllabus. So that's what I need to address today. Examiner is saying students inadequately understand this area. So that's a matter of concern. Inadequately understood this part of syllabus. Why you inadequately understood this part of syllabus, why you have inadequate knowledge in this syllabus area, that's something only the student community can answer. when there is a support available on the ACCA website. Still, if the students inadequately understand this part of syllabus area, that's something really interesting. So let's see, this session can mitigate that inadequate understandings. Okay, now there are some terminologies here. You need to explore these terminologies yourself, because this article is so old article that all the terminologies have been tested. Examiner is not very fond of testing the terminologies, and even if the examiner do test the terminologies, examiner tests them in the very initial exam setting. So it has been tested. So you should read the terminologies. I'm just skipping that for the session. I'm going down with directly where I need to start on with. Let's first make something very clear. Forensic. If you ever look at the meaning of the word forensic, that's something very important. Can you look at the synonyms, if that's visible to all of you? If I can just enlarge the screen size and show you, at times things are so easier, but we don't want to get into easier things. Rather, we make our life more difficult. Can you see the mnemonics synonyms? Forensic means something scientific. Forensic means something criminal. If you type the word forensic on Microsoft Word and you just do what I am doing currently, you just check the synonyms of forensic, you will literally get to know the meaning of the word forensic. And that is so very important for exam paper. A lot of time you're not familiar with the word and the meaning. So forensic is an investigation. Forensic is something of a criminal investigation, something which is very, very deep inside. So what basically is forensic? So the good answer for forensic is that forensic is basically an investigation. Investigation of what? In our syllabus, that is an investigation of a fraudulent activity. So it is an investigation. Which investigation? We need to keep it down to the AAA paper. So in the AAA paper, that's an investigation of a fraudulent activity which has happened in a company. Now, when you look at forensic as an investigation, you should understand that being an investigation, it has no assurance. Rather, it is a fact finding exercise. It is a fact finding exercise into the alleged fraudulent activity. So when you are hired as a forensic accountant, right, you are doing a fact finding exercise. You're conducting a fact finding exercise. You're not giving any assurance. Investigation is not an assurance, right? Investigation is not an assurance, right? Amar Ahmed, yes, that's right. Fact finding, no assurance. So it's a no assurance engagement. So in the exam, please don't do a blunder saying forensic is a reasonable assurance engagement. No. Forensic is a no assurance engagement. It is a fact finding exercise into the alleged fraudulent activity. Now, what fact finding are we doing? Fact finding about three things. We are doing fact finding about three things. Number one, who did the fraud? Number two, how it happened. And quantification. Quantification of the loss. Quantification of the loss or the quantification of the fraud. Three things. Who did the fraud? Investigate that. How it happened? Investigate that. Quantification of the loss, fraud. Third. Now, normally, when there is a fraudulent activity in the company, a lot of times the companies have an insurance claim, insurance cover against the fraudulent acts in the company. So the company can have an insurance claim of the loss or the fraud. So normally the quantification is done for insurance claims, and the company used to claim such things from the insurance company in an event if something happens in a company like such. Yes, obviously it's an assignment, Ilara. It is an extra assignment, just like audit of performance information. We are doing a topic which is other assignment. So everything we are doing in other assignment is a special assignment which the auditor has to offer. So it is a fact finding, who did it, how it happened, and the amount of loss. Now, in an exam context, this is what you have to do. In a AAA paper, you are not concerned about who did it and how it happened, because that will be given in the case study. The AAA paper expects that you should know how to make procedures on the quantification, procedure on the loss. So the AAA paper is not much focused on who and how, but the AAA paper is more focused on quantification, and that's where the AAA paper expects you to perform procedures. So procedures are not leaving you, right? Procedures are part of this topic even. And again, you know how to make procedures, ASP, and procedures have to be case adaptive. So procedures can come on any topic. You should know how to make them. So the AAA paper expects you to perform procedures on quantification of the loss, right? Then when you look at the report, just like the audit of performance information, when you look at the report of forensic investigation, which the examiner has covered in the article even, there is no format of this report. The report covers the fact finding. The report covers the fact finding, and even the report covers the recommendations to improve internal control systems. Improve internal control systems, so to avoid a reoccurrence of a fraud in future. How it happened? It must have happened because controls were weak in the company, right? So when the auditor writes a report for the management, the auditor even give recommendations to management. How can they improve the controls in the company, so to avoid a reoccurrence of the same fraud the next year? So is that clear to everyone? Forensic is an investigation into a fraudulent activity. It has no assurance, rather it is a fact finding. It is a fact finding about three things: who did it, how it happened, and the quantification of the loss. And when you publish a report on forensic investigation, there is no format. Rather, in this report, you just try to cover the fact findings and how to improve internal controls. Now, something of a unique thing, a unique feature of forensic investigation, which you should know very well. The unique feature of forensic investigation is uh, auditor appearance, auditor appearance in the court as an expert witness, as an expert witness. That is something unusual, because when we normally performs an audit of a financial statement, no, exactly, Sophia. It is the management, right? The management hires us. The management will report to us there is a fraud in a company, and the management will be hiring us, right? So basically, that's how the process starts. In for every assignment, it is the management who approaches the audit firm, right? In a AAA paper, that's the simple story. The management will approach us, and the management will ask us, "Can you do this for me?" And we'll say yes. So that's exactly the start of the story. Is that clear to you, Sophia Rana? Okay, now moving on. One of the unique feature, right? One of the unique feature of forensic investigation is that auditor appears in the court as an expert witness. Is that a special step because we don't see this step in the audit of the financial statement? Audit ends with a report, right? Any assignment ends with a report. But is it an extra responsibility on the auditor to be appearing in the court as a witness? Is that something extra? Let's see what the examiner has written on this in the article. Can you see a paragraph in front of your screen, the role of an expert witness, in the blue bracket, in the blue box? Can you just read the para 1 and the para 2 quickly in like 2 minutes? And I'll be taking your question and answer after 2 minutes. Can you just read what is the role of an expert witness and how the auditor plays the role of an expert witness quickly? Yes, in the context of the exam paper, the client, we are doing the forensic investigation of our client. So that's true for the AAA paper. Okay, now can all of you read the paragraph 1 and 2 in the blue box quickly in 2 minutes? And is the paragraph visible on your screen clearly? Can you see the paragraph clearly on your screens? Okay, great. Then start reading it quickly. Okay, if you have read so, is the auditor a witness of fact? Is the auditor a witness of fact? Is he a witness of the fraud? No. Examiner says you are not witness of fact, rather you are an expert witness. You are gathering evidence on who did it, how it happened, and the amount of loss. So auditor is an expert witness because the auditor is gathering an evidence. You must have seen this written by the examiner very carefully here. Examiner says one is a witness of fact, and the examiner says then one is known as a expert witness. An auditor is basically an expert witness, right? So auditor may be called to the court because the auditor needs to explain the evidence. Auditor needs to explain the evidence the auditor gathered to the lawyer or to the judge in the court. So can you understand why the auditor is appearing in the court? Because the auditor wants to explain the evidence auditor gathered to the judge or the lawyer, who did it, how it happened, amount of loss. So is that clear to everyone? So quick answers again. Is auditor an witness of fact? Is auditor a witness of fact? No. Is auditor an expert witness? Yes. Why? Why is auditor an expert witness? Because auditor gathers evidence. Auditor gathers evidence. So because he's gathering evidence, he's an expert witness. And how many things is he gathering evidence on? Three things. Okay, good. Who, how, and the loss. So this paragraph is a very crucial paragraph because that was an extra step, unique feature. So this is a unique feature of a forensic investigation, that auditor needs to appear in the court as an expert witness. So should all of you know from the article who is an expert witness and why is the auditor an expert witness? So is that clear from the article of the examiner? Okay, next thing. Examiner, just like the previous topic we were doing before the break, audit of performance information. Now, in the audit of performance information, the focal point of the examiner was procedures, right? Now, when you look at the topic forensic focuses on two things. Number one, ethical and professional issues. And number two, procedures. Now, You know procedures, and you even know ethical and professional issues. Have we done ethical and professional issues on the day 3 yesterday? And have we done procedures on the day 2 of this webinar? So you have some ideas here, right? About ethical and professional issues, and you have ideas about procedures. Forensic covers both. Now the good thing again is examiner has covered in depth the ethical and professional issues, so you should not be worried about. Let's go and explore the examiner article on the ethical and professional side. When you go down this article, you will see okay, something I'm just missing. Uh, even something very important in this article which you cannot skip. For forensic, you should also know planning a forensic engagement. How you plan a forensic engagement? Is it just like audit, or is it very dissimilar from the audit? Is planning an audit and planning a forensic the same, or is there something different between planning an audit and planning a forensic investigation? Let's read all the three from the examiner article and prepare ourselves for a question. How we plan forensic, number one. What are ethical and professional issues in forensic, number two. And number three, what are procedures? Okay, let's go down first with planning. Let's see what the examiner tells us about planning. Okay, now you have to read a paragraph quickly. Uh, can you see a paragraph here which has been bracketed blue? And can you see the first line of this paragraph? It says, however, planning the investigation is likely to be similar to planning an audit or any other assurance engagement. Is this line critical here? Examiner says planning the investigation is likely to be similar to planning an audit or any other assurance engagement. So in the exam paper, if the examiner asks you planning of planning of anything, will that be the same like as we do the planning of an audit? Yes or no? So is the examiner telling us very clearly that planning of an audit and planning of an investigation is the same? Okay, let's recap. Can you start reading from here about planning? Can you read the para 1, 2, 3, 4 in front of you? Right till here. Can you read this in under 2 minutes? The blue box I just made will have 4 small paragraphs. Sanjana, no, it's not important for this time. So that's simply a big no. Okay, the number one thing the examiner is telling us about planning, it says planning will commence with a meeting with the client in which the engagement team will develop an understanding of the issue, event, that is the fraud, and actions taken by the client. So what is the first thing the auditor should do when he's planning? He should have a meeting with client to obtain understanding of the fraud, how it happened, and the actions taken by the management. So when we do the planning, right, when we do the planning for the audit, is that exactly the same step that we have a meeting with the client to obtain knowledge of the business? So are we taking the knowledge of the fraud here? Knowledge about how the fraud happened? So examiner is saying the very first thing you should do in planning is to have a meeting, number one, right? Number two, examiner is saying when you're having a planning, you should, number two, examiner says, see this, a key part of planning is to confirm exactly what format the output is required in and exactly what matters are required to be covered within it. So that means in a planning stage, we are also confirming from the management what format the output is required. That means what should be the format of the report. Is there any prescribed format of the report for forensic? Is there any prescribed format of report for forensic? Yes or no? So if there is no prescribed format, should we discuss that with management? So is the examiner saying you should discuss the prescribed format with the management and the matters to be covered in it? So number two, what are we doing in planning? We are discuss with management the format of the report, and what to be covered in the report. Why are we discussing this? Can anyone give me a quick reason for that? Why are we discussing the format of the report and what to be covered? Because there is no prescribed format, right? Good. So are you coming clear with examiner article here that why are we doing planning? Planning first to meet the client and to obtain understanding. Then number two, planning is to discuss with management about the format of the report. Number three, look at the number three here. This point here. At this stage, any key documentation will be obtained and scrutinized. For example, the insurance policy, the partnership agreement, the evidence that led to the discovery of the fraud. So at the planning stage, you will even ask management, do they have any insurance policy? Because it's quite possible that you claim from the insurance company. At the stage of planning, you will even ask for the evidence that led to the discovery of the fraud, means who whistleblow the fraud, right? So at the stage of planning, the number three thing we are doing, we are also obtaining evidence at the stage of planning about how did the management came to know about fraud, and their insurance policy. Do they have an insurance policy? Right? So have you seen what examiner has covered in the article? Examiner has even covered planning in the article. So do you realize whatever the examiner covers in the article can be tested in that topic? So the article of audit of performance information was different. The article of forensic is different. So can the examiner examine planning in forensic? Yes, because the examiner covered planning in forensic. So detailed planning. So if the examiner asks you planning a forensic investigation, can you recall the examiner article that planning a forensic investigation requires a meeting, requires a discussion, requires obtaining evidence? Is that clear to everyone? Okay, the next and the last thing. Back to the article. The team will agree with the client what access to information or personnel will be required. So you are also discussing at the stage of planning something very important. At the stage of planning, you're also discussing access of the audit team to information and personnel. So will the audit team have access to information and personnel? So if a question comes in an exam paper about the planning matters, can you write 4 planning matters from the examiner article? Is everyone clear on these 4 planning matters to do when you are performing a forensic engagement? Meeting the client to obtain understanding, discuss with management the format of the report, obtain evidence about how did the management came to know about fraud, and access of the audit team to information and personnel. So take it as something important, planning a forensic investigation. Okay, number 2, ethical and professional issues. Let's see what ethical and professional issues can arise if your existing client comes to you asking for a forensic investigation. So in an exam paper, in a AAA case, your existing audit client will approach you for performing a forensic investigation service. Now let's see how much you remember from the day yesterday. If your existing client approaches you for performing a forensic investigation service, First of all, do you remember something known as a management threat yesterday? Preventing and detecting a fraud, whose responsibility is that? And what is the subject matter of forensic investigation? What is the subject matter of forensic investigation? Fraud. Who is responsible for that? So can you recall something from day 3 yesterday? So will we write for examiner that there is a management threat because management is responsible for preventing and detecting fraud, right? So yes, but forensic will be prohibited only when the fraud is material by quantification. If the value of the fraud is insignificant, code of conduct says forensic is permissible. Is that clear with everyone? So in this case, we can take on the management responsibility because the code of conduct says Muhammad Adil Anwar, management threats makes no sense here. Why? Is it not the management responsibility to take on? Is it not the management responsibility to prevent and detect fraud? Muhammad Adil Anwar, is it not the management responsibility? So then, what's the difficult thing here? Why it's not making sense? If the auditor takes on the management responsibility, is it not a management threat? Right? If you want to see this here. Go to the examiner article, go down and see this. Can you read this paragraph in front of your screen? Remember Muhammad Adil Anwar particularly, can you read this paragraph? Remember, and everyone else, see what the examiner has written. Remember that the decision to prosecute is a matter for the client. Often clients do not want to prosecute for a fear of damaging their reputation. The forensic accountant can provide the client with analysis of all the facts, but must not take decision to prosecute. It is a management threat to objectivity, so on and so forth. In a case of forensic investigation, management threat is permissible only if the auditor refrains from prosecuting the person. He can only tell management who did it, how it happened, and the amount of loss, but the auditor will not go further than that. So management threat is an ideal part of forensic investigation, but the code of conduct says if you only keep yourself confined to, who did it, how it happened, and amount of loss, then you can do the forensic investigation. Is everyone clear on that? I'm just going back to the word file. Uh, there is a management threat because management is responsible for preventing and detecting fraud. Now see what I'm writing in the bracket. However, the can conduct audit firm can conduct a forensic investigation if they stick to their role, and you know the role, right? If they stick to their role, who did it, how it happened, and amount of loss. If they stick to their role and the fraud and the fraud is immaterial. So the code of conduct is very clear that you can do a forensic investigation. You can take on the management responsibilities in the case of a forensic investigation, only if it is immaterial and only if uh, the firm sticks to their role. Is everyone clear on that? Quick answers. Okay, and please do read the examiner article further. Number 2, will there be a self-review threat when we perform a forensic investigation for an existing client? Hassan, that would be given in the exam paper, right? The examiner would tell you in the exam paper whether it is material or immaterial. So don't be worried about that. So you need to read the case study properly to know whether it is material or immaterial. Is that clear? Okay. So self-review threat. Examiner is also telling us about the self-review threat in the article. See this. Can you read this paragraph in front of your screen? And can you read here? The examiner has written the self-review threat here. Can you just read this paragraph where I have just circled self-review threat to understand why there is a self-review threat? I'm just waiting for you to read, right? I'm giving you 1 minute to read the paragraph where I've just uh, bracketed self-review threat. Okay, good. In the exam, you will also need to note whether the client requesting the forensic accounting service is an audit client. So will you note that in exam paper? You will need to note whether the client requesting the forensic accounting service is an audit client. If so, this will present an additional and particularly important threat to objectivity, a self-review threat. And see, the examiner is justifying after. The investigation is likely to involve the quantification of an amount, which will then be reviewed as part of the financial statement audit. When the auditor quantified the amount of loss, will the amount of loss be recognized in the financial statement? When the auditor quantified the amount of loss, will it be recognized in the financial statement? And will it later be audited by the auditor? So is the examiner very clear on that? The investigation is likely to involve in the quantification of an amount, which will then be reviewed as part of the financial statement audit. The significance of the threat will be affected by the materiality of the amount and the subjectivity involved in quantifying it. So if it is material, then will the self-review become a very major problem? If it is a material fraud, right? So, and if it is an immaterial fraud, then self-review will have a cool down effect. So please read the case very carefully. The case will guide you. Is it a material fraud? Is it an immaterial fraud? Do you understand the day 3 yesterday significance of the threat? So can self-review be a significant threat or an insignificant threat? Nabil, that's permissible, right? That's permissible part of forensic investigation. So we cannot do anything about it. Right? So self-review threat. And now think about a professional issue. Is there a professional, do we need to have professional competence conducting a forensic investigation service? Is there an utmost need to be professionally competent to perform a forensic investigation service? Do we need to have proper skills and competence? Do we need to have a proper professional behavior when we perform the forensic accounting service? Do we need to be skeptical? Do we need to be skeptical when we're performing a forensic investigation service? So can you think about the professional issues when it comes down to forensic investigation, being competent, having a behavior, being more skeptical, and self-review threat? This was covered in the examiner article, and management threat was even covered in the examiner article. So can you read the paragraph of ethical and professional issues from the examiner article to be good at? You just saw that paragraph here. Examiner has spent time writing a paragraph on fundamental ethical principles in the article. So will you read these paragraphs on fundamental ethical principles so that you can relate them with forensic investigation? Right, so please do read this paragraph, fundamental ethical principle, because it will really guide you how you would go about linking the ethical principles if a question comes on forensic investigation, right? Just one last thing from the ethical principles. Uh, can you just read this final note here? This is a very important final note. Just spend 1 minute on reading the final note, because this is a blunder the students do in an exam paper when they get a topic on forensic investigation. Right, so examiner is making something very clear for the student community. Be careful in the exam not to detract from an otherwise professional answer by getting carried away with suggestions such as taking fingerprints or a DNA evidence or a blood sample, or catching and punishing the culprit. That is not the role of an accountant. Examiner says you might be obsessed with watching investigative movies when you attempt a question on forensic investigation. Uh, Examiner is saying you cannot write something like taking fingerprints or doing the DNA testings or taking the blood samples of the culprit or even catching them up or punishing them up. That is not the role of an accountant. So will you refrain from such things in writing procedures or writing something in forensic investigation? So will you be focused on blood samples and fingerprints and DNA samples, catching, punishing the culprit? Is that clear to everyone? So will you control your emotions when you see a topic on forensic investigation in exam paper? Or will you relate that forensic investigation with an investigative film? So a lot of time the student relates a forensic investigation with with an investigative movie, and they just go carried away. Is that clear with everyone? So just one last thing quickly, and moving towards a quick practice of a question. Again, I've covered forensic investigation in my previous webinar in March 2018. So if you want to have a better practice of this topic, you can even explore the March 2018 webinar for more practice on the topic forensic investigation. I was more focused today on the article, because I need to make you realize that how important this article is and how many things you can get through the article. Just one last thing and getting to the topic. Procedures, the final thing. Because a question on forensic is incomplete without procedures, so we need just to see procedures and examiner criticism on procedures. Yes, exactly, Jyoti. That's a very case-specific question, right? So you need to read the case, right, to get to that track. But your track of thinking is perfectly fine. Can you see on your screen the procedures? I'm just reading the first paragraph. Examiner says a method of obtaining evidence can be used in a forensic. Any method of obtaining evidence can be used in forensic accounting engagement. This is not a limited assurance in which the procedures are likely to be restricted to inquiry and analytical procedure. So are we open to any procedures? Any method of obtaining evidence can be used in forensic investigation, right? So any method. Did we came across something in the session today? Any method of obtaining evidence? TAD, MSR, something like that? Test of controls, analytical procedures, discussion with management, minutes of the meeting, recalculations, source documents. So examiner is saying you're open to any method, right? So we can do anything making procedures, but will we make procedures on DNA testings, blood samples, fingerprints? Will we make procedures like that? No, But is the examiner saying we are open to procedures? Any procedures? Yes. Next, look at the next blue box. To be awarded marks in exam, your procedures cannot be vague. Did we learn that on the day 2? That the procedures have to be very specific. Procedures cannot be vague. A procedure should have an action, a procedure should have a source, and a procedure should have a purpose. So examiner is saying your procedures cannot be vague. Then the examiner gives you an example of a vague procedure in the next paragraph. For example, it would not be sufficient to write interview the suspect. So examiner is saying you will not get anything if you write in the exam paper interview the suspect. You must suggest question that should be asked of the suspect in the interview. So is that clear to everyone? If you just write interview the suspect full stop, is that a good procedure? Examiner is saying no, that's not a good procedure because you need to write what will you question. So examiner says you need to write the question you will be asking the suspect, and the examiner has given the example of that in the remaining paragraph. Then the next thing, examiner says this also applies when recommending inquiries of or discussion with management. It must be clear in your answer what is the engagement team asking. If you just write in the exam paper discuss with management, examiner says that's a vague procedure. You should write in the exam paper what are you discussing with management. So interview the suspect, what are you interviewing? Discuss with management, what are you discussing? So you cannot make vague procedures. Did we learn that on the day 2, that the procedures cannot be vague? So are we getting the same thing repeating today on the day 4 in a different topic? Okay, let's do a final recap now. You need to read this article, that's for sure. Examiner is saying that when we are writing the procedures cannot be vague. We can do any procedures, but we should refrain from DNA. We should refrain from blood samples. We should refrain from capture the suspect, etc. Fingerprints. So examiner is saying no, you should refrain from such things. Then next, should not be vague. So procedure should not be vague. And all of you remember the procedures, right? That the procedures should use ASP. You all know ASP, right? And the procedures should be adaptive to case, right? Okay, let's do a quick exercise now. So just one quick recap. From the Examiner article, when you start reading this Examiner article on forensic investigation, first of all, you should know that forensic is an investigation. 1, it has no assurance. 2, it is a fact-finding exercise. 3, it is a fact-finding about 3 things: who did it, how it happened, and amount of loss. Then the report of forensic investigation has no format. The report covers the fact-finding and even the recommendation. One of a unique feature of forensic investigation is the auditor appearance in the court, and an auditor is an expert witness. Then from the Examiner article, we came to know about how to plan a forensic investigation. Second thing we came to know about the Examiner article is the ethical and professional issues. And the third thing we came to know about from the Examiner article is the procedure. So does this word file sum up the Examiner article, which will obviously be shared with you on the WhatsApp group? But will you keep this word file in front of you and read the article in full? Can you assure me that? Will you keep this word file in front of you and read the full article and make your proper notes? Will the reading of article help you? Okay. Now you learned something, right? You learned planning, you learned ethical and professional issues, and you learned procedure. Let's quickly apply the learning. Let's do a quick drill on a question. Okay, let's go down. Drilling an exam paper on forensic. Let's see how much have you learned to react. Let's open a question. Okay, right in front of your screen, you can see an exam paper, which is from the June 2015 exams. When you go down the June 2015 exams, see the part C. The part C is asking you a question. Recommend the procedures to be used in performing a forensic investigation on the alleged bribery payments. So we need to perform procedures on the alleged bribery payments. How many marks we have for the procedures given in C requirement? Can you pick that up? Can you pick that up? How many marks we have for procedures on the alleged bribery payment? 4. How many procedures we will be making? 4. So can you see this? What we need to do? We need to make procedures. How many marks we have for procedures? 4. So we need to make procedures 4. Alleged bribery payment. Should we read the case for alleged bribery payment? Yes, okay, that's wonderful. Okay, now can you see this last paragraph? This last paragraph is about alleged bribery payments right here. So we need to convert this paragraph into 4 procedures. See the paragraph in front of you. If I do something better, I just take this paragraph from here. Okay, let's read this paragraph, the last paragraph. It says, Silvio has informed you that the 2 members of the sales team are suspected of paying bribes. 2 members of the sales team are suspected of paying bribes. Can we talk to them, these 2 members? Can we ask something to them? Can we, like, the examiner was saying interview the suspect. So can we interview the suspect here, the 2 members of the sales team? So are these the 2 suspects here? So can we interview the suspect? Right. Next, go ahead. Paying bribes in order to secure the lucrative customer contract. So they need to secure the contracts, and for the contracts they were making the bribe payments. The internal audit team were alerted to this. The internal audit team were alerted to this when they were auditing the cash payments. So can we ask the internal audit team how were they alerted, how they got to know about this? The internal audit team were alerted, right? So can we have a discussion with the internal auditor even, and can we ask from the internal auditor how did they got to know that such bribe payments were being made in the company? Is that true? Do we need to pick things from the case study? Okay, internal audit team were alerted to this when they were auditing the cash payments and found significant payments. Cash payments. What's the source document of the cash payments? What's the source document of the cash payments? Cash books. So can we review the cash books? ASP, action source. So can we review the cash books, cash payments, and found significant payments? Can we see how significant the payments were in the cash book? So can we find a clue of the significant payments to the cash books? To several new customers. To several new customers. Can we take a list of new customers? How many new customers came into the company during the year? Can we have a source document of new customers? Yes or no? Is there a source document of a new customer? Can we take a list of new customers joining the company? So are you getting a track here? 2 members of the sales team were suspect. So is it not easy in the exam paper that when you are drilling a procedure, on the alleged bribery payments, did we got to know something from the case? Number one, that there are uh, number one, we got to know there are two suspects. Number two, we got to know that the internal audit team was alerted. Number three, we got to know that there had been some cash payments of a significant amount, and did we got to know that these payments were made to the new customers? So see how easy that is. If you can do a simple planning in the exam paper, it's so easy to write procedures. Now just an example, two suspects, and I convert that to a procedure. Interview the two suspects, specifically asking them the rationale or the basis of making such payments to new customers, or whether they whether such payments made were allowed by the company. So you need to have any specific interview, right? Yes, that's like a journal procedure, Hamad. You can do that, write that. But if you can just focus on things we identified from the case study, is that more important? Then internal audit team was alerted. So can I have a discussion with the internal audit team? And should I make a specific discussion, or will the examiner give me marks discussed with internal audit team full stop? Will I get marks here? Will I get marks for discuss with internal audit team? No. Discuss with the internal audit team as to how were they alerted, and have have they performed any estimation, have they performed any estimation of the total bribe payments made to new customers? Because see one thing very logical here, right? The internal audit team is the one who got the problem. So is it possible that the internal audit team must have made a working of the amount, and that working can be further investigated by the external auditor? Because the internal auditor must have made a working, right? Auditor can take that working and then can have an independent examination of that working to see whether that working was right or wrong and something should be added to that working. Cash payments. Can we review the cash books? Review the cash book. Will I get marks? Full stop. Will I get any marks? Review the cash book. Purpose missing. Review the cash book to confirm the total amount of payments made to new customer by tracking from the cash book payments made specifically to new customers during the year. Should I track from the cash book? The new customers and the payment made to new customer? Is that very important? Tracking, right? To confirm, right? To confirm is the purpose. Ilara, are you getting the purpose in the number 3? Review the cash book is an action. Cash book is a source document. To confirm is the purpose. ASP, we have a complete ASP, right? New customers. Can I review the list of new customers? Review the list of new customers to confirm the total number of new customers who joined the total of new customers during the year, and to trace the new customers to the cash book payments. Will that list of new customer help me tracing the cash book? So did I did something different from what I taught you yesterday or day before yesterday in terms of procedures, ethical and professional issues? Am I sticking to my rules of new customer? Am I sticking to my rules of procedures specific to the case? Did I read the case with you? Identify from the case the points. Where did I got 1, 2, 3, 4 from? Had I made my own story of bribe payments, or did I read the story of the examiner on the bribe payments? And did I converted the story of the examiner to an ASP? Did I convert the story of the examiner to an ASP? Did I negate my rule of ASP I set on the day 2? So is everyone clear? Whatever topic procedures you get in AAA paper, can you survive? Whichever topic you come across, writing procedures, can you survive? If you know ASP, you know the case, you know what's happening in the case, can you increase your survival rate on writing procedures? Because they can be part of forensic, they can be part of audit of performance information. So I think this is the second time we are repeating procedures in over the 4 days, right? Yes, it is okay. RD Chaudhary, perfectly okay. Koso, the procedure you are mentioning is also perfectly okay. Okay, now just I'm moving towards the finalization stage of the session today. Still a few more things to discuss on forensic, but just within the meantime, if you can keep dropping your feedback of the overall session today on other assignments, because I purposely choose some critical other assignments which are potential for June 2019 exams. So I want to have a feedback session from your side in the next 5 minutes. So keep posting your feedbacks into the next 3 to 4 minutes of the session as to the learnings you got from the session today, and had there been some clarifications to your problem, because that's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. Reading the articles, getting things from the article, extracting the articles, then doing the exam papers, is that something important? Because we never read articles, we never drill articles, we never explore points from the articles, we never connect the points in the article with the case study. So is reading article and connecting the case important? Is reading the article and reading the exam paper important? Right? Okay, so keep posting your feedbacks. In the meantime, I'm just going down with a wrapping up phase of this forensic. Okay, now just one last thing from forensic, apart from procedures. There is another question right in front of your screen, which is on the December 11, question number 4. Again, this question is shared with you. The answer of this question is shared with you. So please see the answer of this question after the session ends today so that you know how to write an answer. Can you see the first requirement of this question, which says assess the ethical and professional issues raised by the request for your firm to investigate the alleged fraudulent activity? Has the examiner covered this in the article? right? Has this area ethical and professional issue covered by the examiner in the article? Did we came across professional issues like having a behavior and having a skepticism, and ethical issues like self-review, management threat, something like that? So will you be reading the case above and finding the ethical and professional issues? And you will then write it yourself first, right? And you will then connect it with my answer. You will not see my answer before you write the answer yourself of the ethical and professional issues from the part A, right? Number two, can you see the B part here? The B part says, explain the matters. Explain the matters that should be discussed in a meeting. That should be discussed in a meeting. Ilara, the answers is in the handouts which has been shared with you. The handout shared with you contains the answers and the questions. Explain the matters that should be discussed in a meeting with Jack in respect of planning the investigation. Matters to be discussed in a meeting with Jack in respect of planning the investigation. Have we covered this in the session today? See the B requirement and tell me, have we covered this in the session today? So examiner is saying, explain the matters that should be discussed in a meeting with Jack in respect of what? In respect of matters in respect of what? Matters in respect of planning. Have we covered the matters in respect of planning in the article today? No, 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 Zishan Ali. Matter is not MTR here. Matter that should be discussed in a meeting with Jack. See the question. That's the problem, Zishan Ali, that we don't read the requirement carefully. Examiner is saying matters that should be discussed in a meeting with Jack in respect of planning. Those MTR matters is for a question on evidence. So do you all recall the matters for planning right here on the word file? Can you see these 4 points in front of your screen? Matters that should be discussed in a meeting, in a planning meeting. So can you relate these points to a case study? So did you saw the importance of the article? This paragraph on planning was examined. This paragraph on ethical and professional issues was examined, right? This paragraph on procedures was examined. So are you understanding? Yes, perfectly. RD Chaudhary, the question you were raising has a yes answer. That's perfect. Bright, the question you are raising has a yes answer. That's perfect. Uh, both your questions, Bright. Koso, your answer is even right. Uh, that's perfect. Perfect. That means you're getting the track of planning matters to be discussed in a meeting, right? So did you realize the importance of the article reading and how then comes the question? So do examiner ask you something without educating you? You have to remember that the AAA examining team is so wonderful that the AAA examining team first write the support article and then they test that in the exam paper. They will never give you a surprise in the exam paper, right? They will first write the support article and then they will test that in the exam paper. But the problem is that the students don't read the support article. Muhammad Noshad, you can drop your questions on the WhatsApp group if you cannot ask the questions during the session, because a lot of times students are unfamiliar with webinar and how to use it. So no problems, you can drop it on the WhatsApp group. So is everyone clear on the session today? Did you got some learnings today from the day 4? Again, have you realized how important was to read articles? Everything was in the article. So we run after books, we run after textbooks. I normally tell students that if there is an article, then article should take precedence over the textbook. Article should take precedence over the textbook. But yes, if there is no article, then you should read the textbook. Yes, Zubair, your procedure is perfect. You can write that procedure. So is everyone clear on the learnings of the day 4 on other assignments? Just a quick reminder that if you want to practice PFI, prospective financial information, which is not important for this time, but you can still see the March 18 webinar. If you want to do due diligence, which is again not important, you can do the December 18 webinar. So you have plenty of webinars on ACCA Pakistan channel on Vimeo. You can explore these webinars on due diligence and on prospective financial information. So I purposely choose the assignments which I have covered less in the previous webinars so that the student community can be benefited across the session today. Okay, just a quick recap of the key learnings we have on the day 4. The day 4 was focused on other assignments, a very important area from the examination point of view. And during the session today, we focused on 2 of them, one being audit of performance information and one being forensic, right? And I hope you got information on both of them very clearly and very carefully, and you exactly know what you should be doing. Now, just give me a quick feedback of things. We're just moving towards the final day tomorrow, the final day of this June 2019 webinar, which is for the June 19 exams. And my focus tomorrow obviously is on a topic known as audit reporting, which is a must question, which is a static question, and students are so bad in audit reporting. You will realize that tomorrow. The tomorrow session will be an eye opener for all of you because you literally are so bad in reporting. You do so much blunders in reporting, and I try my best to I try my best that the session tomorrow is an eye opener for all of you, that how bad you do a question on reporting. So please do join live the session tomorrow for reporting, the last day of the webinar. And just to utilize the last 2 minutes, have these 4 days help you boosting your confidence towards the June 2019 exams. Uh, 4 days ago, 4 days ago when you came into the webinar, and now 4 days after, what's your body language? 4 days ago when you were joining the webinar for day 1, and now 4 days after into this webinar, how has things changed for you? So have something improved over the last 4 days? Have you started to get some tracks, some clues, uh, how to go down with things? But obviously you need to polish them up, right? Practice, practice, practice. That's the key. That's the key. The more you practice, the better. The more you practice, the better. Because that is the bottom line of passing the AAA paper. Practice will make you pass the AAA paper. So please spend time on practice. Please spend time on practice, because that's the most important thing you can do to pass the AAA paper. Okay, it's time to say you goodbye, and it's time to sign off the day 4, and meeting you tomorrow 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. the Pakistan Standard Time, live for day 5, the final day. The focus is on reporting tomorrow. A very, very important day, because that's a very, very weak area for the students. So do join me live tomorrow at 8 p.m. Pakistan Standard Time for the 5th and final day of the AAA Practice to Pass webinar being organized by ACCA Pakistan. Have a nice day. It was nice interacting with all of you. I wish you best of luck for your exams, and it's time to sign off. I'm Kashif Kamran. Goodbye and Allah Hafiz.